The first painting I'm going to do on this whole thing is going to be the engine exhaust. Mainly because this is my first time using these Humbrol enamels. These are the metallic ones that you can buff up after they're done, kind of like Tester's Metallizer. So this is the gunmetal color. I'm just dying to try it out, and I've never used Humbrol anythings before. So this will be fun. You may or may not hear a little bit of Doctor Who going in the background. I always like to have some background noise on when I'm airbrushing. Oh yeah, this needs to be mixed up a lot. I was shaking it, didn't do much good. I've never airbrushed on camera before, so you might have to bear with me a little bit while I get this going. I was hoping for a kind of a darker shade than this, closer to Maya's gunmetal color. This is a little bit lighter than I was anticipating, but I think we can still work with it. Got the spraying completed on both sets of exhaust, and came out pretty nice. Still a little lighter than I had hoped, but I like the kind of texture on it, and I'm looking forward to letting it dry and cure for a little bit, and then doing some buffing just to bring out, see that texture? I really like it. Just to bring out some highlights and some details and stuff. On the airplane itself, I painted these side panels that I figured would be part of the exhaust. I left overspray on purpose. I masked some and I oversprayed some, cleaned some, left some, because I'm going to use that as part of my pre-shading when I get to the pre-shading to kind of put a little metallic-y grime underneath. So I got just a little tiny bit, and you're just going to be able to just slightly make it out underneath the paint coat when it's all done. But I think the exhausts are going to look really, really nice, at least. I gave this paint several hours to dry, and now I'm just going to use paper towel to buff it out. Here are the almost finished exhausts. What we need to do now is a little shading with the Alclad Hot Metallic Blue. Make it look more like a hot titanium, you know, heated up over time. And then on the inside, we're going to darken it up where the exhaust would be flowing out. So first, we're gonna do the hot metal blue, but then we're gonna put some Tamiya smoke color, and that's gonna kind of give us. This is where the hot engine gas goes. We'll also do a little bit on the inside, and then detail out the fans in there. Again, hard to see in this light, but they've got the blue tint, and especially more towards the edges where hot flame would come out. I don't think it's capturing on the camera right here, but they look really good. And got extra blue on the interior. We still have to do some smoke kind of colored in there, and then paint the fans on the inside. Sorry for the bad camera work here. And then we'll be ready to reinstall these into the fuselage with the heated metal panels. This is a great color for doing like the internals. I use it a lot on F4s to make the heat streaks on the metal there that's not blue, but like a tarnished kind of look. You'll see when it comes out. There's a long time in tweaking all little details and getting things to look just the way I wanted them, but in the end, I'm really happy with the way the engines came out. The light in here is probably not the best, but you've got the nice metallic finish with the blue heat. Yeah, the light in here sucks, but I know you can see the blue over here, but you really can't see the blue around the edges on the nozzle, and that's too bad. But you can see the metallic finish. It's pretty nice. Good titanium, solid finish. I was going for coloring similar to F-16 engines, the Block 40 and 50 specifically, or 30, 40, and 50, not the 32, 42, 52. You can see kind of the inner detail that we have there on the inside. I'm trying to catch it anyway. Nice detailed fan work in there and stuff. There's a really nice flat smoky finish on the inner surfaces. Overall, it's probably 2.5 hours worth of actual detailing, not counting time to let different coats dry and everything. This is a shot just in better light so that you can really see kind of the bluing effect. It's very pronounced on that panel right there, not so much on the edges, but there's that bluing of the metal all around as we look at the exhaust. And we've got on the interiors as well. Especially these metal plates being a lot thinner than everything else, they would heat up faster and get that anodized look. On the inside of the exhaust, there's that dirty look to it. A little bit of blue underneath, but the very dirty look of the exhaust pattern. And just a minor panel line wash there. See the differences in color inside the exhaust. So as I mentioned before, in order to sling some ordnance on these wings, I'm going to have to pilfer some pylons and some launch rails and stuff from some other kits. So right now, these are the kits that have valiantly sacrificed parts for us. We've got this Hasegawa F-16B, this good old kit from Italy, and then since this is being built as a drone and I don't need any of the rails anyway, we got some from here. Now, I haven't figured out exactly how I'm going to put these on yet, but I'm going to use as many landmarks, panel lines and such on the wing as possible. By the way, I just sanded this a little bit to remind me which side is down, so I know which direction everything goes in. But I'm going to use the landmarks as much as possible on the bottom of the wings to make sure I mount everything evenly and throughout. Making progress. So I got some preliminary work done on the gun and that center section there, but really what I spent quite a bit of time doing was figuring out how we're going to put hard points on the wings and how that's all going to work out. So I didn't want to get crazy with it. I didn't want to like way overload it. I gotta tell you, I really like the look of it, especially forward swept wings with the launch rails coming out. I think that looks really good. And from the top view too, I think that actually added something really awesome to it. What I really like, just totally style-wise, is how these hard points on the wing gloves, they're kind of angled. Trying to get a good shot there. But they're angled just slightly outwards. So just, I don't know, I just really like the look of that right there. Anyway, I didn't want it to be too overloaded. I want it to be kind of realistic, sort of, you know. It's weird to say given the project we're doing. So what we've got here is we've got 4 air-to-ground stations, and then we've got 6 missile rails. I decided to take a page out of the F-15 and the Hornet playbook, right? So I have a missile rail glued, attached to the air-to-ground pylon on each wing. I also, because I had it available, I don't know if you can tell, I put an ALE 50 dispenser, towed decoy dispenser on the right wing, like it would be on the F-16. Might as well use the parts we have, right? So here's where we are. Now that I've worked out the wing loading and, you know, the hard points and how they're all going to be affixed and how they're going to go on, I can finally get everything ready to start the pre-shading and then move right into the paint job. The next step is going to be the pre-shading of the various panel lines. To do this, I'm going to use an Alclad black base. I'm doing this because it's pretty thin for airbrush use, so it goes on nice and easy. I'm also going to use that for the interior canopy work. I'm also going to use some Tester's Rust to give just, you know, the impression of some worn panels, maybe a little leaking fluid over time. I picked up this technique on YouTube. I think it's going to look really nice for us, all in the direction of airflow along the wings and some other pieces there. So to get started for this, we're going to remove the wings, and we're going to work on them as separate pieces. Also going to remove the engines. I want to say, by the way, I said this in the last video, I've never worked with Humbrels. This was advertised when I bought it as the Humbrel metal coat. Coming to look at some other videos that I watched, because this did not shine up the way that it was advertised, I don't think this is actual metal coat. I think this is just Humbrel enamel. I think I got taken there. Maybe somebody that watches the video with more experience using Humbrels can settle that. I still like the finish though. It still came out really nice. I just don't think it is what I thought it was earlier, so I want to get that out there. So I got all the masking done, and as I was doing that, I had a thought. As easy as it would be to use the Alclad gloss base, it's glossy. And we're going to be painting with flats. Since the whole point of the pre-shading is to have a little bit of that black show through the panels around the edges, I didn't know if the gloss would show through and kind of ruin the image there. So rather than risk it, we're just going to use some Testors flat black instead. I just have an extra thin down mixture of flat black, and we're going to get going with the lines. So pre-shading is done. It's a technique that I'm not totally familiar with. I don't do it very often. I tend to like to do models. I weather tanks very, very well. I like my airplanes to look pristine most of the time, but so one of the things, like I talked about, just shading some panels, not just panel lines, but making it look very used. A lot of the wear and tear on a Navy plane is going to be on the bottom, on the deck. So we've got some extra shading going on there. Got some work on the wings done too. Let's pop these things on so we get a sense of how it's going to look. There's also some very, very fine panel lines on here. I think looking back on it, I probably would have switched needles on my airbrush to a finer one, just to get a little bit better control of those lines, but I think it's going to work out just fine. Some of the lines on this kit are incredibly fine lines, so I paused often during this just to decide where I was going to use the pre-shading and where I was just going to do a panel line wash on some of them too. So I didn't cover every single line, but I think I did the majority of them here. The weapon stations, I'm just going to do a panel line wash when it's done. But I think this covers it pretty well, and I got the cockpit interior color done as well. So the next step is to start putting the gray color on the plane and start getting it painted. Now that we're ready to actually do the painting, I made a final decision. We're gonna do our own thing, but we're gonna base it on the Two Bobs decals for VF-103. So we're gonna use some of the markings, we're gonna use the color scheme. We're also gonna go off the reservation a little bit and do some things a little bit differently, because obviously we're doing a what if plane, so we have a little bit of creative license, and you'll see how it kind of goes as I go through it. But the basic paint job is going to be the kind of modern navy light gray. So to do this, we're actually going to work with 3 different colors of gray. I've got light ghost gray, dark ghost gray, neutral gray, and we'll use all of those at full strength. The main color that I'm going to give across the whole thing, though, is going to be a light ghost gray cut with about 25% white. That's going to give us a good scale effect of the main color, but it's also going to give us somewhere to go so that we can also use the full scale dark ghost gray to fill in individual panels, just kind of give us different effects. So we'll have a base of that lightened up light ghost gray, and then we'll work from there with the other grays This kit doesn't have a specified radome. You know, real aircraft today will have a radome. I'm going to trace out a radome shape that has a lot of right angles in it with some tape, and we'll paint that as we go too. I apologize. I thought that this battery was much more charged than it was. I thought that I had plenty of battery power to get through all the work, but obviously not. So did all of the pre-shading, did all of the main body painting. I still have a fair amount of detail painting with a brush to do throughout this, but so here's where we're at. So the effect came out really nice. Usually I just use panel line washes when I'm all done on aircraft, but I really do like the look of the way this came out. So let's take a look. So you can see that I left the effect kind of subtle. There is a lot more. Let me remove this because it's going to fall out. You can see that on the bottom, where I wanted a lot more of the weathering to be, I left the effect much heavier than on the top side. But I really do like the way it all came out. The lighting in here is not really great, so it's hard to see a lot of it, but got panels in different colors and different shades in different areas. But the weathering effect that the pre-shade gives is really, really nice. Subtle, but definitely noticeable throughout the plane. Also did a little bit more work on the exhaust area there to give it more of a kind of a mottled look. I like that more than the original finish that was on there. So that came out pretty well. I told you I wanted to give it a radome just to break up the plain gray color that it was gonna have. And I did the black painting for the Jolly Rogers, just like would be on the F-14. So did that with the Alclad lacquer, and that includes the nose wheel gear doors, because that is painted that way in the F-14. It's got some crew members' names on it, but we'll see that when it's all finished later on. Yes, and then the wings also, I wanted the wings to look different. I didn't want them to look symmetrically weathered, because that would look very unnatural to me. So you can see they're different. Panels are different. The weathering amount is different on each side. I think that looks pretty cool. Again, heavier on the bottoms. So all the pylons and everything, they're not pre-shaded. I'm just going to do panel line washes. I'm going to have to play with the decals to make them fit just right on this, because obviously they're not intended for this. They're intended for an F-14, but I think it's still going to look really well. I'm really excited about this. I also have to do some kit bashing with landing gear to get myself the catapult, whatever the technical word is, but the catapult grabs it and shoots it off the deck. I also need to get some arresting gear, a hook, to go on the tail so that it can land on a carrier. And a few other fun things to do. We need to get some weapons done and everything. So I feel like nothing is better than natural light for capturing the look and colors of projects as you're going. So here we go. This is just a rough dry fit with the wings on and all the work that I did last night, giving those panel lines just the look that I wanted with some random, darker and lighter panels throughout the plane. Now, of course, things are going to darken up just a little bit when we do the clear coat. That's okay. That'll just help things out a little bit. Kind of the improved finish there on those side panels of the exhaust. Still quite a bit of detail painting to do, all along the aircraft, but I'm pretty happy with the way it's coming out so far. Really like the heavier weathering effect going on and beginning on the bottom. Yeah, so not a bad start at all. This is going to look really worn. Maintained, though, at the same time, as best they can in combat on a ship. So next up is a coat of future and decaling and the detail painting. Have to work on the gear wells and the landing gears, but it's just going to look pretty damn good when it's all done. But I think that'll be it for this video, because it's already running pretty long. So in the next one, we'll see the results of the future coat and the detail brush painting and some decals, and if we can make it a manageable size video, we'll move on to the landing gears and final details.